The first round of All-Star voting is done. There's stuff to talk about there. The trade deadline is 5 weeks away. There's plenty to talk about there and so much more with your mailbag questions. We're going to jump into live here on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live tonight and every night. We love talking Dodgers with you, like doing it live too. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, but it's just me tonight. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And with that said, let's jump into our episode. It's a mailbag episode. We'll be getting to your questions that were sent in to us in a little bit. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the All-Star voting. We got the news. Well, we knew that the first round of All-Star voting ended on Thursday, and we got the results and of who's moving on to the second round. And there's some expected good news and some kind of unexpected bad news. And so first, let me just tell you, I am here alone today. And as you could probably tell, if you're an everydayer, my voice is still not totally back to where it was. I think it's going to hold up just fine. But, if I do pause to take a drink or clear my throat or whatever, that's what's going on here. I'm also going to try to keep my eye on the chat room with our live people here. There's a lot of spirited conversation already going on, so I appreciate that. So bear with me. I'm going to try to do my best here and, click all the buttons. I did pre-record the ad breaks to give my voice a little bit of break for a couple minutes, a couple times. So that's where we're at. The All-Star game, 3 Dodgers made it to the next round of voting. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Teoscar Hernandez. Ohtani is going to win the DH vote, especially because the other DH who made it to the second round was Kyle Schwarber, who, as Kenny points out, both Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper got hurt today. Both of those things are going to be relevant during this segment. Mookie Betts, with him being hurt too, we'll see. I hope he wins the vote, because if you win the vote, but you can't go because you're hurt, you just, you're still an all-star. You just don't go to the game and they replace you on the roster. I don't know if they would put an injured guy on the roster just so he could say he was an all-star and then replacing with somebody else if he doesn't win the vote. So we'll see what happens. Teoscar Hernandez has a decent chance in the outfield, but, more likely, I don't expect Teoscar to be in the top 3 in the final round of voting. So probably not voted to be a starter. But I think he has a decent chance of making the team. The 2 Dodger-related snubs, and we have to put snubs in air quotes, maybe snubs, at least for one of them. Freddie Freeman was snubbed. He didn't get to the second round, and that's because there is no second round at first base, because the top vote getter automatically gets a starting spot. The top vote getter in the first round overall, that was Bryce Harper. He got the most votes of anybody at any position in the National League, so he automatically gets the starting job at first base, which means that there is no second round at first base in the National League. Freddie Freeman will absolutely be on the All-Star team, especially when you throw in the news again that Kenny pointed out that Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper both got hurt today. Schwarber, looked like a hamstring. I haven't seen the official thing. I saw the play. He pulled up lame running through first base. If it's a hamstring issue a couple weeks before the All-Star game, seems unlikely that he would play in the All-Star game unless it was just very, very minor, which means Freddie Freeman probably will end up starting at first base for the National League. Will Smith did not make the next round, make the cut at catcher, which is, if you look at their stats, yeah, Smith has been struggling lately. It's still ridiculous. JT Realmuto beat him out, and Smith has been better than Realmuto in every way this year, and his equal for the last few years. So it's kind of silly. Fan voting is always silly. I did see my buddy Michael Whitman on Twitter. He pointed out, he said that it seems like Dodger fans just don't care as much about the All-Star game, which means they don't care as much about voting for the All-Star game. I think there might be some truth to that. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Kenny says, try the tea and lemon, gargle with salt and lukewarm water. I've gargled everything you can imagine, Kenny, and I'm just battling this voice thing. So the gargling hasn't helped. I have found Dayquil helps during the day a little bit. But yeah. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Do you guys care about the All-Star voting? Like, I mean, obviously we care when somebody gets snubbed. Elisheva says Will Smith should be there. Absolutely agree. But did you vote? I guess that's what I want. Did you guys do your 5 votes a day the last couple of weeks when you could? I get the feeling that a lot of Dodger fans don't care as much and about the All-Star game specifically. And I don't mean that as a knock at all. There are a lot of Los Angeles is a city of a lot of entertainment options. I think it's really impressive, even with the population, that the Dodgers fill the stadium 81 times a year because there are so many different things you could be doing. And so I'm not surprised that Dodger fans like an All-Star game. Okay, I'm not going to the game since it's not in LA. And I'll probably turn it on when it's on. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Dodger fans just aren't as motivated to vote. Elisheva says her brother is obsessed with the Dodgers and he didn't vote at all for the All-Stars. Kenny says, I don't care at all about the All-Star game. I did vote daily, though. Probably won't do it the next round. Elisheva did vote her 5 times a day. Sammy Boy says he voted the last 3 days. King Yellowman says, haven't voted for the All-Star game since 1989. Honestly, I miss the days when the only way to vote was going to the stadium and getting the punch ballot and voting that way. Like, that's how I grew up voting for the All-Stars. And I know this old man yells at cloud, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that's a way to reward the better fan base, because if all the voting was done in stadium, then yeah, the Dodgers would have more All-Stars because they have more fans. And I'm sure that's part of why they don't do it that way anymore. And that's a Dodger fan view of thinking it would be more fair to do it that way because it would favor the Dodgers. I get that. But I think it should be the biggest baseball fans voting for the All-Star team. If you're going to let fans vote, shouldn't let fans vote. But if you're going to let fans vote, actually, I don't have an issue with fan voting now that they don't pretend the game means anything anymore. When the World Series home field advantage was tied to the All-Star game, I think it was ridiculous that they let fans vote. I remember in 2015, 2016, the Royals had like 6 starters. And it's like, okay, well, it might not have even been 2015 because they were actually good that year that they won the World Series. But, it was some year when the Royals had starters who didn't deserve to be starters, but their fan base was fired up and they voted. Okay, great. As long as it doesn't matter. But back then, World Series home field advantage was tied to it. And it's kind of crazy. Like when you look at World Series that went to 7 games and you think about the fact that some team had home field advantage because of an All-Star game that didn't even affect them. So, it's kind of crazy to let fans vote, but it's okay since the game doesn't matter. And I do assume, like I said, I'm sure that Freddie Freeman will be on the team. I assume that Will Smith will be on the team. I don't know that for sure, but I assume so. So it is, I don't get too fired up about these snubs, especially because this is just first round snubs. Once we know who's actually on the team, and even once they announce the teams, then you have the injury replacements and I don't want to play replacements. And so you end up with 10 or 15 guys from each league getting added to the team even after the teams are announced. So I'm not going to get up in arms yet about the snubs, and maybe not ever, but it is newsworthy. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about a bunch of questions that our listeners sent in, talking about trade deadline stuff, some non-trade deadline stuff, some stuff about my preference when I'm eating chicken wings, a whole bunch of stuff. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here at Locked On Dodgers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season's over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I'm an independent contractor doing this podcast, so my taxes are a little bit more complicated than a regular W-2 employee. And so I always need tax experts helping me out every single year. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below. This episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And back, I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember to become an everydayer, you just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Definitely appreciate our everydayers. Appreciate those of you who are with us live. What else? Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text back and forth with us, get our thoughts on news, rumors, all that stuff before the podcast. It's a lot of fun. Just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. Really quick before we get into the questions, just want to clear up a misconception. Elisheva was asking if Evan Phillips would make the All-Star team, and Roy told her the relievers were picked by the Diamondbacks manager because the Diamondbacks played in the World Series last year. That's not actually quite true anymore. They've taken most of that out of the manager's hands. He still sets the lineup, but the manager doesn't pick. I don't know if the manager picks any players anymore. It's all done by player vote, and the commissioner's office picks some. But yeah, it's the actual roster is very little, if at all, in the hands of the managers anymore of the teams. So just want to clear that up. But let's jump into your questions. There's a lot to talk about. We got a lot of trade deadline stuff. Let's start with, there's so many. I guess let's start with this one. This one comes from our buddy Dan Weitzman, lives in Sacramento, from LA originally. He asks, I've been wondering what the situation is with the Kenley Jansen pickup. Is that still possible? I keep hearing about it, but nothing for sure. And yeah, that's an interesting one. Kenley Jansen is a guy who possibly could be moved this year. The Red Sox are actually playing better, and they have a decent chance at making the postseason. But if they were to hit a cold stretch in the next couple weeks, they could turn into sellers. I don't think that Kenley Jansen is on the Dodgers' radar. I think that's been shared a lot from the media, but I feel like the national media is a little bit out of touch with the Dodgers on that regard. I think Dodger fans love Kenley Jansen and will always have a soft spot for Kenley Jansen. I don't think Kenley Jansen makes this Dodgers bullpen better. And that's what the Dodgers would be looking to do in any trades, would be make the team better. And Kenley Jansen doesn't do that. So, Dan, my opinion is Kenley Jansen to the Dodgers is just not happening. Next one. This one's kind of a catch-all that will give me a chance to talk about a few people. Rick P. from Laguna Beach, one of our insiders, says, what are the biggest needs that should be addressed before the trade deadline, and by whom and in what order? So, tell me everything about the Dodgers trade deadline. And we've talked a lot about the trade deadline the last few days. I don't want to regurgitate a bunch of stuff we said. I know not everybody watches every day, but, let this be a motivator. We've talked about at least some about the trade deadline, probably each of the last 5 or 6 episodes. So we have plenty of thoughts. But I was thinking today, reading a bunch of articles about different rumors and stuff. And there's a few names of guys who are possible to be traded who we haven't talked about much, if at all. And I want to talk about a few of them. Going around a lot lately is Tarik Skubal of the Tigers. And it's kind of funny because last year around the trade deadline, we had somebody commenting, I don't remember who it was, don't know if it's a regular or not, but several times on our YouTube episodes, the same person commenting that the Dodgers should get Tarik Skubal from the Tigers. And I replied a few times, said, I'd love to get Tarik Skubal from the Tigers. Tigers aren't going to trade Tarik Skubal. And that was true last year. This year, it sounds like the Tigers might be open to trading Tarik Skubal. And I saw one report that the Dodgers and the Orioles were the two teams listed as teams that might have interest in him and have the farm systems to get it done. And sorry, did I freeze up? Is my internet acting wonky? I just saw a comment. But hopefully you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat to make sure you can hear what's going on. Everything looks fine on my end. But the Tarik Skubal is having an even better year this year than he had last year. He has a 2.32 ERA. His FIP is 2.69, so it's not like he's getting extremely lucky. Last year, his ERA was 2.80. His FIP was actually 2.0. So, I mean, Tarik Skubal is very, very good. And he's relatively young. He's only 27. He'll be 28 in November. And he still has 2 more years of team control after this year for team control. So he's very good, and he would definitely make the Dodgers better. And I saw somebody saying they prefer Skubal over Garrett Crochet. I think Crochet has better stuff, probably, but it's close. And Skubal doesn't have the injury history. I might rather have Tarik Skubal than Garrett Crochet too. But he would be expensive. But yeah, that's one that I really like the idea of the Dodgers getting a lights out starting pitcher, somebody who can slot in as one of their, postseason rotation. Not a Lance Lynn type last year. I know Lance Lynn ended up in the postseason rotation. That was never the plan. They got him to get him through the regular season, If the Dodgers trade for a starter, it's going to be somebody who makes the postseason rotation better. Tarik Skubal fits that bill for sure. I'd love to see it. I also saw somebody throwing out the idea. I think this was maybe Cody from the Bleed Lows podcast throwing out the idea of the Dodgers taking on Javi Baez's contract to lower the price of Tarik Skubal. Hey, if that'll work, Dodgers, it's just money and there's no loyalty to Baez. So yeah, take on his $85 million he's owed, DFA him or let him, fill the role of guy who hardly ever plays and doesn't make the postseason roster, whatever. There's a lot of ways they could get it done. I'd be interested to see that. I would love to have Tarik Skubal on the Dodgers. And as Kenny points out, he's going to get expensive. And so the Tigers probably are, and since they're really out of contention, probably they are likely to trade him. Tarik Skubal is a name that we hadn't talked about. Another interesting one that I saw today that I wanted to talk a little bit about. I don't think it's likely. I think it's probably crazy to even talk about it, but I was reading an article on The Athletic about guys who are likely to be traded, and this name came up. It was Vlad Guerrero Jr. And in this article, I think it was written by Levi Weaver, and he made a point of saying Vlad Guerrero can still play third base too. And I thought, well, the Dodgers don't currently have a third baseman. And with not knowing when Max Muncy's going to be back, I doubt that Vlad Guerrero is a good defensive third baseman, but I don't know if he's terrible. I mean, he's always been a better athlete than he looks like he should be. I wonder if the Dodgers, if they would go and get, Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero. Vlad can hit, he's got a ton of power. Like I said, it's not likely. King Yellowman does not like this idea. I don't like it either, but I also kind of love it. Just the craziness of it. Like, it would be fun. Just, yeah, I don't think there's any way the Dodgers would do it. If they were willing to play a guy who hits really well but doesn't play third base well, that's probably where Miguel Vargas would be playing right now. I think the Dodgers have shown that they are more interested in defense than, at least too interested to allow Vlad Guerrero to be their third baseman, but that would be funny. And, that I want to bring that up just because that's a name we hadn't talked about. And I hadn't even thought of Vlad Guerrero as a third baseman in like 3 years until I saw that article. So, you know what, that would be interesting. They made a point of saying he can still play third base. I'd be interested to see it because it's been a while. The chat seems unanimous on not wanting Vlad to be the Dodgers third baseman. Hey, if he hits a walk-off homer in Game 7 of the World Series, I bet you'd be okay with it. But yeah, I think I'm with you guys. Another name we've talked about it a couple times is Tanner Scott from the Marlins. He's a guy who does make the bullpen better, unlike, Kenley Jansen or some of these fringe relievers. Tanner Scott's an interesting guy. Another name I saw is Taylor Ward from the Angels, a guy who is a good hitter, plays a solid outfield, filling a role. I don't think the Dodgers would get him to be a starter, but if you look at the Dodgers bench players, and, before we started, BC was talking in the chat about the Dodgers offensive performance outside of the big five-ish and how bad it's been. And I kind of made the point to him in the chat, most of those bad numbers are from guys who aren't going to get any postseason at bats. And a guy like Taylor Ward would kind of, if he replaced Kike Hernandez, like, okay, you're filling Kike's role. You're just a guy who can hit better than Kike. Something like that. Taylor Ward could be a fit as a role player. Again, as Kenny points out, which is obviously always the elephant in the room when you're talking about an Angel. Artie Moreno won't trade to the Dodgers. I don't know that that's true. I know that Artie Moreno is unlikely to trade Mike Trout to the Dodgers, but I don't know that it's true that they wouldn't ever make any trade with the Dodgers, because the fact is, at some point, the people you hire to make baseball moves, you got to let them make a baseball move and can't hamstring them every time. So I don't know. But that would be interesting anyway. So those are a few thoughts I have. Like I said, we've talked a lot about the trade deadline the last few days. So if there's somebody you think I should have mentioned, chances are we've talked about them in the last few days. So I'm going to come back in a minute. I've got a few more of your questions. I think we've covered the trade deadline stuff. We'll dig into some of the non-trade deadline stuff. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. As if you needed another reason to confuse me with TNFA, this episode is brought to you by Booking.com. With summer travel heating up, especially for travel baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. I have been to Major League Baseball games in 33 different Major League stadiums. Yes, 29 of the current ones, plus 4 that don't even exist anymore. I've stayed in hotels for most of them. There are a lot of really cool hotels in a lot of great Major League cities. One of my favorite is the hotel right next to Coors Field in Denver. Great baseball-themed hotel across the street from the stadium. It's awesome. And not like across the street like Dodger Stadium where you still have to walk a mile. It's literally across the street. Great place if you're ever going to a game in Denver. Obviously, there's great hotels in New York, Boston. Most major league cities have great hotels, and you can get them booked on Booking.com. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, yeah. This episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date, first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. And back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here with me live if you are live. Thanks for all your questions. We got a bunch of them from our insiders, a couple of them through Twitter. One other one that we got on Twitter was from Corey Shadid at the Grizzly Bear Zero. Asked, what are the odds that the Dodgers go after Francisco Lindor? Would Miguel Vargas or Landon Knack be someone to headline this trade? And I know I said I was done with the trade deadline questions. I just want to touch on that one a little bit. We have talked about Lindor a little bit in the past, but more I want to look at the Dodger side of that, asking about Vargas or Knack. I do expect Vargas to be traded in the next month because I think if he was going to the way the Dodgers have been deploying him really only makes sense if they are showcasing him for a trade. He's hitting very well, and so a team that needs a guy who can hit and can play a couple specific positions that the Dodgers don't have openings for, you know what, he could be a trade deadline piece, a trade piece. Landon Knack, I don't think he's likely to be traded. If the Dodgers did acquire a pitcher or even two who was really good and had team control, like Tarik Skubal and or Garrett Crochet, I could see maybe Landon Knack being involved in a trade because the Dodgers do have a lot of young pitching, but Landon Knack is a part of the current plans for the Dodgers, so I don't really envision him being traded. So I just want to touch on that. Next question. We're past the trade deadline talk. This one is from our buddy Pat Dwyer. What do we know about Josue Paula's defense? Josue Paula is one of the Dodgers' top prospects. Young guy, 19 years old, just got promoted from low A to high A. Pat says, I saw that he's been playing some DH, and I'm curious if that's just to give him as many at-bats as possible, or if it indicates any kind of question about his competency as an outfielder. I'm sensitive to the latter, given the positional roadblocks we've seen with Bush and now Vargas. And the only thing I really know, Keith Law from The Athletic, when he was on the show with me, we talked about DePaula and Law's concerns with him. And I'll read what Keith Law said about DePaula in his prospect rankings. He said the main concern with him is that he's a well below average runner already at age 18 and has so much projection left to his body that he might grow himself right into first base. The combination of bat speed, selectivity, present power, and big physical projection could make him among the best hitters in baseball at his peak. And if so, whether it's at first base or in an outfield corner, it won't really matter. And so that the foot speed was the concern that Keith Law has. But then I looked, and DePaula is 14 for 14 in stolen bases this year. And so I don't know. I actually texted Keith and haven't heard back. Asked him if there's like sprint speed tracking in the minor leagues, because I don't know if DePaula has worked on his speed, if he's gotten faster, or if it's just easier to steal bases in the minor leagues, or if he has a different kind of speed. So he's a good base stealer, but not a fast runner. So I don't really know for sure what DePaula's defensive future looks like. But I mean, the fact is we're now in year 3 of Freddie Freeman's 6-year contract. So even if DePaula ends up eventually a first baseman, you figure he's an outfielder at least the first couple of years of his career, and maybe becomes the first baseman once Freddie Freeman retires or whatever. You know, I don't think DePaula, you know, if we're thinking about it from a trade deadline standpoint, I don't think he is at a point defensively where he's so roadblocked like Bush and Vargas that the Dodgers would think about trading him right now, if that makes sense. That's kind of my thought on that. Next question. This one, I'll go back to Twitter. This one comes from Ed Helinski at Mr. Ed 315. Do you prefer creamy blue cheese or ranch dressing with your chicken wings? Well, Ed, I'll tell you, I actually like both. I prefer blue cheese with my chicken wings, and assuming we're talking about buffalo chicken wings, I don't like plain chicken wings that much, and I definitely wouldn't eat them with blue cheese. Buffalo wings are the only thing that I like blue cheese with. I don't like the flavor of blue cheese dressing on a salad or anything else, but the flavor of the buffalo sauce is strong enough that the blue cheese, the strong blue cheese, really complements the strong buffalo sauce really well, and I really, really like that flavor. Maybe my most controversial opinion on buffalo wings is I prefer boneless, even though I know they're not wings. They're just fancy chicken strips. I'm okay with that because I have a thing. I don't like to touch food, and buffalo wings are really hard to eat. If I'm at home, I can do it because I know I can get up and wash my hands and my face as soon as I'm done. If I'm at a restaurant and they have a nice clean bathroom, I can handle it, but I much prefer buffalo wings that I can eat with a fork and a knife. So the boneless kind. So that's my opinions on buffalo wings. I just saw this in the chat. I'll bring this up. Dark Saints talk about the news about Bichette not being surprised if he was traded. I don't know if you guys saw that. A reporter asked Bichette, would you be surprised if you get traded at the trade deadline? He said, nope, not surprised at all. Bichette is most likely going to be traded. The question is where, and I think the Dodgers are kind of pretty likely landing point for him with the need that they have. Even though like they have Mookie Betts at shortstop, but we all agree Mookie is not a great defensive shortstop. I appreciate all that Mookie's done for him to step up late in spring training and take over shortstop because they needed him to. I think it's awesome, but I think everybody's probably ready when Mookie does come back from injury for him to slide back into second base. And whether that means Lux goes to a utility role or a trade, I don't know. But Bichette, I'm definitely on board with that upgrade. Just looking to see if there's other big questions. We're going to have another off day on Monday, and so probably another mailbag then. So I guess I'll get to this last one. One last one. This is from our buddy Matt Bates, who is one of my favorite Canadians. He's from Victoria, British Columbia. He says, Miguel Rojas needs to be the everyday shortstop, right? He's having himself a season. No disrespect to Mookie, though. I love Mookie. So basically, right now, Matt, Miguel Rojas should be the everyday shortstop and basically is. I do think Miguel Rojas, his best value to this team is a utility infielder who can provide good defense at 3 different positions and doesn't have to play every day, because I do think at his age, I don't think that his body is made to play every day anymore. I think it would be better for him and the Dodgers if they did get a guy like Bichette, get Mookie back playing second base so that Rojas can go back to playing 2 or 3 days a week and providing a lot of value that way to the team, late inning defense when they need it, all that stuff. So that's my thought on Miguel Rojas. I think that's pretty good. I love Miguel Rojas. I think everybody does, except for Jazz Chisholm, which is why, by the way, Jazz Chisholm is on all of these lists of guys likely to be traded. And I'm not even bringing him up because the Dodgers aren't going to go get Jazz Chisholm, knowing that his history with Miguel Rojas. Someday, maybe I'll tell you guys my story. I knew about the rift between Chisholm and Rojas almost 2 years ago now. But I never said it out loud, still haven't. So maybe one of these days I will. But that's going to do it for me for today. I've made it a half hour. My voice has made it a half hour. It doesn't have much more in it. We've got a couple days off from the podcast now. Dodgers start a series with the Giants. Looking forward to that. And then we will be back Sunday night, Vince and I, hopefully both of us, if my voice is feeling good, to talk about the weekend series with the Giants. Looking forward to coming home to play the D-backs, all that stuff. So we'll have plenty to talk about Sunday night for our Monday morning episode. So thank you again for being with me. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can catch the Locked On Dodgers postcast on Locked On Sports LA, hosted by Pete Fox after most Dodger games. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us, just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial. It's a lot of fun. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you Sunday night.